Manduke again. I don't have anything in particular on my mind tonight, but well, it looks like I gotta shave my head soon. It's starting to it's what it is. I only shave it like once a month, so it is what it is. And in the wintertime, I wear a hat, so I shave it less often, but it still happens. It just depends on how cold it gets. And right now, it's a chillier night, but it's 60 degrees. It's not really that chilly. It just feels chilly because it's been warmer. And, as in the springtime, 60 degrees will feel amazing, but right now it's not springtime. Tonight's shirt is just a skeleton, which I tend to identify with the Memento Mori style of skeletons because my body isn't much more than a skeleton with, parts. Some parts are larger than others, but, hands are smaller than feet. Is what it is. But since it is a random rambling, which I didn't title it because I kind of just wanted to rush into it, I am trying to do this every night, but I have a couple weird facts stuck in my head, and those weird facts keep coming up on somewhat regular basis when I'm talking because I'm nervous. Because when I'm around new people, I tend to get a little bit nervous and I get overwired. Normally, women that I'm interested in make me a little bit nervous, partially because of my past and I know where it goes. But that nervousness I can overpower. I don't get severe anxiety, I overpower it. And if I get into touching, it completely reframes the way my thoughts work. But right now, the random thought of Orca's favorite food is. I hope you can hear me. Huh. Hold on. Oh. It's brighter with the door open. Orca's favorite food is moose, and that happens because moose like to graze in inlets from the ocean, and moose can apparently hold their breath for 18 hours. So they'll go and graze at high tide on stuff that grows at the bottom of the inlets, which is, their favorite food apparently, and then orca come into that inlet and eat the moose. It's a weird arrangement. But the other weird fact that goes with orca is that sperm whale apparently hold grudges against orca. So sperm whales being the hello Eden boy, uh, sperm whales being the largest predators on the planet, orca will come into the pod and try to eat the sperm whale babies, and the pod of sperm whales will defend them off. And even though sperm whales' favorite food is giant squid, which they are specifically adapted to get to and dive super deep to get to, they will actually mark that individual orca and then go hunt them down and interrupt them hunting and eating other things, just to hold the grudge. They don't necessarily kill them, they just prevent them from doing what they enjoy doing, which is killing random stuff and eating it. So, that's random ass stuff that sticks in my head for whatever reason. There's also like the cuttlefish stuff that I did extensive research on. Um, hello, Alexander. I'm okay. Um, I don't I don't remember you. No offense, but as an old friend, you may have been watching my channel for a long time, but not too many people comment on my standard. Oh, from Bradway. Wow. I still don't remember. Sorry, dude. Are you still driving? Obviously, I am. I'm still sitting in a day cab right now because I'm on the clock, but doing jockey work with a day cab. And money's not bad, especially since I have hours of downtime. This time last year, it was clock in and run nonstop, so I wasn't able to sit on YouTube or take the nap that I'll take after I get done with YouTube or eat or any of that. I didn't eat at all. I just clocked in and ran. Dealing with some health issues, but on the road to Maryland. Well, Maryland is a whole lot of fun road system that I don't like dealing with. Good evening, Lorena. Um, but I was 6 years OTR. I started with Werner from Bradway, and then I ended up moving to Blackhawk. I got on dedicated pods, and dedicated pods, I swapped to Blackhawk for more money. Uh, Blackhawk was 65 CPM, and because pods saw me as one of their top drivers, they gave me an average of 4,000 miles a week. But as of last year, I became local because Blackhawk let me go because of the condition of my truck. Saying, well, they didn't let me go. They told me I couldn't bring my dog anymore, and dog didn't have anywhere else to go at that time. So I quit because I wasn't gonna put my dog down to hold a job, because I see the dog as a member of the family, and I just lost my stepdad, so it was insulting to me for them to say, oh, you can't bring your dog. And they said it was because of the condition of the vehicle. I offered extra money for them to clean out the previous truck, and they just said, well, no, you just can't bring the dog. So, and they charged me twice to have the dog on the truck. So whatever, fuck them. I think they thought somebody else would get the miles I was getting, and ultimately that's not how that works. Somebody else that was, also ranked within Pod's corporate, didn't matter what company it was, whoever their top drivers are going to get them. Doesn't actually matter what company you work for. They look at you based on performance individually. So that ended, but I needed local work because my mom needs assistance. So here I am in Swedesboro, which it's okay money. But like I said, this time last year I was clocking a run nonstop. I was doing jockey work in a day cab, sharing the day cab with somebody that was doing a shuttle run during the day who couldn't stop hitting things, which is a pain in the ass. He totaled 2 trucks while, no, I'm not Swedish. He totaled 2 trucks while I was sharing it with him, but he don't work here anymore because he couldn't stop hitting things, which is good. There's only 3 Class A drivers here now. They're not hiring anything because they changed their contract. So, but not to get into their personal business because it is mail. But it's not bad money, but it's not good money. OTR money is better than long haul money. I'm going into the U.S. Navy soon. I leave for boot camp next week. Oh, congratulations. I hope that gives you everything you want. In some ways, I do kind of regret not joining the military when I was old enough to do so, but it's not a major regret because I might still be doing what I'm doing. I'm doing it. I'm not doing it for the money. I'm doing it for the dad lore. Well, it'll give you a good experience, and it gives you a leg up in the American economy when you're done with military, if you're ever done with military. Because the skills and whatnot you learn, not just for the job skills, but also the stuff you learn as far as the hierarchy and taking orders and all that stuff, all of that is looked at as good. And being on time for work and all the neatness and all that stuff. Pay attention to all that. All that stuff is going to benefit you throughout your entire life. Not to mention all the veteran discounts and all that fun stuff, so long as you don't get injured and have to deal with the VA, because the VA is garbage. But anything that is socialized entirely turns to shit, because anything the government touches turns to shit. Right now, military is good, but military is usually good when we have a Republican. But when we have a Democrat in office, military goes to shit too. Like the last 4 years. Well, you have to get in there and see if you enjoy it, if you're the kind of person that thrives in the environment, because there are plenty of people that do. 20 years might not even be the limitation of how far you go with it. Yeah, well, that's when we have a Republican, wages and all that stuff, the equipment goes up, everything is better. And then, if we look at Biden, you're more likely to go to war and die, and they don't really care if you die. But that's something we have to keep in mind when it comes down to election time, that, right now, voting for a Democrat is actually voting to destroy America, because that's what they're trying to do, and it was obvious in the last 4 years. Because I don't really think Biden was actually running anything except running America into the ground in any way they could. But And that's more or less what Obama did for his 8 years. He didn't start out with extreme stuff, but he definitely went in extreme direction, and that's the Democrat Party has been on a downhill ever since. I had to make sure Kamala didn't get elected before I called the Navy recruiter. Yeah, well, the rest of us had to make sure Kamala didn't get elected because that would be the end of America. Because if they leave that border open for too long, then they are planning to replace us. Because as more of us wake up, nobody in their right mind is going to vote for them. And yeah, she's an idiot is the problem. Like, Biden had the excuse of he was old, so he was potentially senile. Maybe he had dementia or Alzheimer's. They weren't going to admit anything, but one of those things. But then Kamala gets on stage and she's equally as stupid as him, and she's not old, so what's her excuse? Well, I don't like to look at what's happening to England, but England is not the United States. More than half of us are stubborn, and they've been trying to destroy us through social engineering and all the rhetoric that comes out of the communist states so that they can take over us. And as long as we still have our Second Amendment, which is something Democrats have been trying to take away from us for decades, as long as we have that, nobody's ever going to invade the United States, because the largest armed force in the world is the American population. Yes, a lot of our population is military and used to be military, so they've been trained. I train myself, and I do have military friends that I train with. But we're not organized. It's just that the idea as a farmer, every American has a gun. No, that's not true, but there's 6 houses on my street, and I know for a fact that 4 of them have guns. The other 2 may or may not. I don't know. Multiple personality disorder. She was different race like 3 or 4 times. Well, I don't know that it was multiple personality disorder. I think it was more that she was being told what the people wanted to hear. So she more or less copied Trump's plan after going that we're just going to continue Biden's plan, but there was no plan at all, was the problem. And Trump, I like Trump. I like the way he governs, but I don't like his character so much, and I will hold him to fault if he does stuff that I don't agree with, because I'm never going to agree with one politician entirely, and I still think the government's evil no matter who the head of the government is, because everything the government touches turns to shit. Well, apparently she's 50-50. She's Indian and black, but the people I know that are 50-50 black and white identify as black or mixed. They don't ever identify as white. So it's just Democrats like to play that race baiting political stuff. I don't judge people on the color of their skin. I'm more a believer in Martin Luther King and content of character, and maybe because I'm white, I know more white shitheads than I do black shitheads, but I try not to make friends with shitheads if I can help it, because there's tons of terrible people in this world. And the idea is to be friends with good people. And I like that the audience that are watching and interacting tonight are good people. Last night wasn't so many good people, not that none were, but a lot of people last night were just spamming bullshit, because I guess they go on tours, like back in the days of chat rooms, we used to like follow each other and you jump from room to room and be assholes in different rooms. But I was a teenager. That was somewhat comical as a teenager. But teenagers are on YouTube, even though I make sure that none of my videos are posted as for kids. But I guess if you log into your mom's stuff, then you are then seen as your mom, and hopefully your mom is of age, and if she's not, then what's the world coming to? But we do need more babies, so whatever. Yeah, it is. I've been doing lives, I don't know, for the past couple of weeks at work, but it was a pain in the ass because right about the time where I got my CDL, when I would have met you, YouTube changed the factors of what was required to be able to live stream from a mobile device, which I only reached somewhat recently because you needed over 1,000 subscribers. I've had 1,000 subscribers for about a year now, but I stopped posting quite a bit for quite a few years. I've just been doing concerts and whatnot, and I found while I wasn't posting, I was gaining more subscribers, which was kind of weird. Like I didn't look at analytics as much, and I was trying to live life less through my phone and try to appreciate life more. But yeah, I need more hours of watch time to be able to monetize. I don't need more hours of watch time to be able to live stream and have non-subscribers watch. So, yeah, but since I've been doing this live stream at night, because I get 3 to 4 hours downtime after I get back from my shuttle run every night, I've been doing this live stream, and the live stream has been helping get that watch time because if I get, a peak of 20 people watching for a couple minutes, all of that is added, and then the 100 views or I get or whatever I get is more than the majority of my videos that are sitting on the channel, because I've been doing the channel for 15 years. But the older stuff, some stuff, it's always the one-offs that get a lot of views, or sometimes seasonally, or if somebody gets into a mobile game that I played for a little bit, because I was doing like recording of mobile games actually while I was at Bradway. But like most of them are, it's a pain in the ass. But that's for monetization, and I'm not really worried about monetization. Like if I were able to, I would, but I wouldn't monetize this. I would monetize the stuff that random people are watching on a regular basis, like some of the tours of the trucks that I've been in, and the rental car reviews, that kind of stuff that people are watching regularly. Uh, Top viewed stuff that's been on the channel for a long time. I would monetize that stuff because that stuff isn't for my regular subscribers that watch stuff as it comes out. That stuff is for random people who expect ads on everything, and I may as well make some money off of it. Before they changed the rules, I actually did get $100 uh, for the stuff that I had posted before, but they changed the rules, gave me the $100, and I won't see money again until I get 4,000 watch hours. And right now, or at least last I looked, I had like 1,300 watch hours for a year, which is, not great and nowhere near as much as I need. And then with more and more people getting into shorts, shorts will never get me to those watch hours. I'd need like 100 million views on a short, which is possible, but I'd have to get user. Um, I'd have to get something that goes insanely viral to be a short to get 100 million views to get any kind of watch time out of it. Yeah, but I try to limit them, and every once in a while YouTube moderates itself, but uh, bacon, egg, and cheese on a roll. But like I said, I get these trains of random trolls in chat that uh, are a problem. I understand why bigger YouTubers actually have somebody with them to monitor the chat room, but for the amount of people I get in here, I can do it myself. So, if people are going to be assholes, because inherently people are assholes, and YouTube is available all over the world, so you're going to get assholes like not extended car warranties and shit. So, it's so Alexander, you're doing like long haul, or you're doing local runs from Jersey? Vertical streaming, it push more. It's push. Well, yeah, I tried to turn it sideways the other day, and it still gave me a vertical view. So rather than having it sideways for you guys, I figure I'll vertical, and it's easy. Uh, it's random shit. I'm always talking about random shit. And mostly once I get people in here watching. I'm, talking with the people. So, moved to Michigan. And still, well, Michigan's a beautiful state. I don't know that I would choose there. I want to move to Tennessee after being OTR. But Tennessee, because no state income tax, and New Jersey takes more out of my paycheck than the federal government does. And the area in Tennessee I was looking at has no property tax. And if I'm only going to be home for a week at a time every 6 weeks, why do I need to be paying property tax for services I can't use? And then in that time, be able to build, a retirement home because I don't want to roll in trucks for the rest of my life. But right now, I have to be local to take care of my mom. So I got a 40-hour-a-week overnight job that's an hour away from home. And like I said, the money's not there. But, I mean, I'm making better money than I did OTR for Warner. So it's not terrible. It's just not there. But for the amount of work that I'm doing, like I'll get done with this YouTube, I'll have a snack, and then I'll take a nap. And they don't care if I take a nap. If they can't wake me up with a phone call, they'll come out here and knock on the side of the truck, wake me up, and then I do the work, and like they don't care. Between now and the time I get done, I'll do maybe 5 moves. 6 if somebody else is an idiot. Most of the drivers who get it's like this is the first stop they get after they get their CDL. So couch hopping for 6 years. Well, yeah, since we've been in school, like things have been different, and like I jumped to Blackhawk. They're based in Beloit, Wisconsin. They started me at 47 CPM. Werner had me at 37. By the time I left there, because I was with them for 4 years, they had me up to 65. 65 CPM. I can't find anywhere. I can't even find 62 CPM for regional. But I don't want regional because regional's a joke anyhow. Yeah, well, that's a OTR. I lived in the truck even when I came home because during COVID, like before COVID, I was taking my days off to go to national parks and see the country. And then after COVID, I couldn't do that because like during COVID, I couldn't do that because all the national parks were closed. So I started coming home, but I still lived in my truck when I was home. Uh, CDL is commercial driver license. Class A is a commercial driver license, but there is a Class B CDL. There is a Class C CDL. Class B is like straight axle, which is your buses and dump trucks and trash trucks and whatnot. Bus requires you to get a passenger endorsement, so that's different. But Class A is combination vehicle, so that's truck and trailer. And then you can get endorsements for doubles and triples if you want more than one trailer. But I haven't found any of the endorsements to be worth the money. Yeah, well, I enjoyed flying the drone all over the country because it gives you a different view of different things, and there's a lot of amazement out there. And a lot of companies don't like to send you to like the Northwest, which is weird. But if they don't have anything up there, then I get it. But pods had me everywhere, and I enjoyed being everywhere because being everywhere means more miles. And if you're averaging 4,000 miles a week, good luck finding another company that'll do that. But the drone was a piece of shit and decided it didn't want to fly no more, so I haven't gotten another one yet. I want to get another one, but I've not been doing a whole lot of research to it because I'm spending money on other things and trying to build my pickup truck into an overlander and going to music festivals. And well, you guys can see the concerts and stuff that I go to on here because it's most of what I've been posting for the past few years. But I am looking into getting a body cam because body cam I've been playing disc golf for the past year, and I want to be able to film myself playing disc golf, which might help me get better, but probably not. I kind of suck at it, but I'm competitive with the people I play with, so it's still fun. If I got too good or my friends got too good, it wouldn't be as fun. I'd have to get better. Can't believe the previous administration was considering electric semis. it wouldn't have had. Yeah, well, like the Tesla semi truck, I've looked into it. The big thing with electric vehicles that nobody is talking about, like everybody's talking about the infrastructure for charging can't handle it, but you know that Tesla Cybertruck weighs 9,000 pounds, and even like the Model X is like 7,000 pounds. My pickup truck's only 4,000 pounds. It has a gross volume weight of 10,000 pounds. It can tow 10,000 pounds, but it only weighs 4,000 pounds. If we all switch to electric vehicles, everything is going to be heavier because even the electric semi truck, they don't tell you that it's a day cab that weighs more than a sleeper cab does, which means you can haul less stuff in the trailer. So, and then the day cab also costs more than a sleeper cab does to purchase. So they're more expensive. They only have a 400-mile range, but that's based on the amount of weight that you're hauling. Like they put the 400-mile range on an empty trailer. So if you want to get more range, you might be able to get 500 bobtail, but if you stack it down with 30,000 pounds, you can't get 40,000 in them because the truck itself weighs too damn much, then you're not going to get the same range. And just like, because I've watched some YouTube channels that do testing of electric vehicles. Well, they didn't used to do electric vehicles, but now they're trying to push it like it's the wave of the future, and it's really not. Electric's not the answer. Toyota doesn't think electric is the answer, and honestly, I agree with Toyota on that front. I don't know that hydrogen is necessarily the answer, but it'll take years and years before any alternate source of power for vehicles is going to be good enough. I do like the existence of electric vehicles, but pushing them to be mandated when it's still relatively fresh technology. Like, yeah, they have been around for decades, but they haven't been mass produced for decades. And we look at what we have in modern cars. Maybe in 100 years, electric cars will be as good as efficient as the cars that we have now. But like, I got a 21 Camry that averages 42 miles to the gallon, and it's not even a fucking hybrid. So what do I need an electric car for? The $30,000 modification to my house to be able to charge it at home, because in my home county there's 2 chargers and one of them's usually broken, and then I'd have to pay for that. And then the other thing nobody talks about is if you're charging a 50 kilowatt hour battery on a regular basis, like with the miles I put on based on range, I'd have to do it once a week, but that's a 50 kilowatt hour battery. I only use 2 kilowatts a month at my house, and my electric bill is like $150. So if I'm using 50 kilowatts a week to charge a car, my electric bill is going to multiply dramatically. And if I know anything about utilities, they only go up. Mining lithium is actually worse for the environment than having gas vehicles. Yeah, mining lithium is a problem, but if I look at it just on cost base, I don't need to go buy a brand new car now. So getting a $60,000 car, if I was going to get a $60,000 car, I'd probably get like a convertible Camaro or something. Maybe I'd get, spend a little extra and get a Corvette, but it wouldn't be an electric version. But I don't need a car, so why am I going to spend $60K on a car and then $30K to modify my house to be able to charge the car, and then have at least $1,000 a month electric bill because I have this car? And if I factor out the amount of gas I spend between both of my vehicles, because I got a 21 Camry and an 04 Silverado, I drive the Silverado on the weekends. Like, I drive it to work on Friday night, and then I drive it all weekend, and then on Monday night I drive the car car gets better fuel economy, but the truck needs to be driven, and the truck is more fun to drive because it doesn't have all the babysitting tech, lane keeping, active cruise control, all that stuff. But all the modern semi trucks have it. So I wanted that stuff when I came home, and I like the fuel economy that it gets. I like the value of the car. I leased it, and then my buyout on it was 14.5, and when I bought it last year, Blue Book on it was 23. Like I wouldn't have been able to buy the same one for the money they were selling it to me, but I knew that was happening because I got it right before the car shortage, right before inflation hit the automotive industry. So I knew it was going to be a good buy. And it's a Toyota. They're almost always a good buy. That's why they have the highest residual value, because they're the most dependable. They hold the most value. And, you know, things change, but at the same time, my pickup truck, I expect to have that for the rest of my life because it's a low miles LS2, and LS2s are designed to do 500,000 miles. There's a couple factors to why we're taking oil from the rest of the world. Like, Alaska is a giant oil reserve that has more oil than the rest of the world combined. But it needs to be refined more than some of the other oils that come out of the planet. So they don't use it as much. And it wasn't until Trump's first term that we actually tapped it really at all. But on one side, Democrats are trying to destroy the country, and how do we do it? Well, we need oil, so let's buy it from our enemies. Not that Saudi Arabia is necessarily an enemy, but they're not exactly a friend either. And they buy it from Iraq and Russia too. So, and I really think we should be allied with Russia, but, and I'm Ukrainian, so saying that, it sounds terrible, but at the same time, Russia wouldn't be taking over the world if they were allied with us. And we need all the help we can get against China. Like, it's not the 1980s anymore. We could work with something, and yeah, Russia would push back a little bit on American influence, but they will push back on us no matter what. And if we're against them, they're going to push back harder and hurt more. Even if they're not hurting us, we're fighting a proxy war in Ukraine. Although I haven't heard much about that, but I haven't been listening to too much political stuff lately. OTR, I listen to a lot of political stuff because during the 2020 riots, I needed to know what cities were rioting when, because they were dropping bricks off of overpasses at semi-trucks. And the idea that they could rob the truck, granted, pods are impossible to rob unless you have an oversized forklift to move them, but because they got roll doors that face each other on the trailer, so it doesn't work that way. But you know, well, thanks, Lyrical. Yeah, it does say Lyrical Cereal. That's a cool name. But I needed to pay attention to that stuff, and I became more conservative the more I listened to the stuff because it made more sense. And yeah, the 2020, like the day that George Floyd got killed, I was actually in Minneapolis. I was in the industrial park because that's where the pods facility is, but so I was nowhere near where it happened. But I thought it was crazy that that's the day it happened. And when I first signed on with Blackhawk, I did a Michaels fill-in for the holiday, and they sent me to Minneapolis, and that was like in the area that they rioted at. Granted, that was later, like early 21, after the riots were done, but all the stores were boarded up. They didn't clean any of that shit up. They had no intention of cleaning the stuff up because they were worried it was going to happen again. But I got more miles in 2020 during the whole COVID 2 weeks to, well, 8 months to slow the spread, because there was all the idiots stayed home because they were told to, and truck drivers are considered essential, so we kept running. And we should be essential, because if we don't keep running, everything stops. You know, if I stop, they'll replace me. But if this business stops working, South Jersey doesn't get packages. Not from U.S. mail. They'll still get Amazon. They'll still get UPS. They'll still get FedEx. They'll probably still get DHL, and I've been seeing a couple other small companies add up, like Uni, which I don't even really know what the hell that is, but shipping, whatever. But if this place ceases to exist, then packages through the U.S. mail, the U.S. mail cannot handle the packages that run through this building. So, and they're learning that the hard way because they fucked up the contract. But likewise, if truck drivers stop running, you can't go to the grocery store, you can't get gas, you can't do anything. And so we kept running, which is good because the economy took a hit from that shit, but it's better than the pandemonium that it would have been without anything. Although I still think it was crazy that people thought our entire way of life was going to end, so they hoarded toilet paper. What can I not live without? Toilet paper, which was weird as hell because I was hauling a lot of toilet paper to distribution centers during that time. But you could still buy wet wipes. Like, if the world is ending and I can't live without wiping my ass, why would you get toilet paper when there was wet wipes? Love how TAs claim without truck stops, but trucks literally are the thing supplies them with their good. Well, without fuel, we can't run trucks. So they're not wrong, but they're not right because they don't operate without us. And without TAs, we'd still have Loves. And Loves is better in my opinion. But this company only gets their fuel from Pilot because my so-called manager used to work for Pilot. Well, I guess he worked for Flying J, and he talks about how Flying J was a great company before Pilot took over, but Flying J apparently bought a bunch of oil when Obama was in office and moved it to California to get refined in like 2019, and then lost billions of dollars because they didn't realize the oil was going down, which doesn't sound like they're a very intelligent company. Well, it's a you scratch my back, I scratch your back, and there's plenty of that in the economy where both things are needed. And TA recently sold their gas pumps to BP. I'd kind of like to see them sell their diesel to BP because I think it would bring down the cost of fuel. And most of their locations need to be revamped and like redone entirely. Like, there's a new Petro on I-10 in New Mexico that is actually nice. But I sort of thought that TA was the parent company, but maybe that's just more than. I think Petro might have bought TA, but Petro and TA are the same. I prefer Petro to TA because Petros sell deviled eggs, and I've gotten deviled eggs out of Petros across the country, and as weird as it sounds that I would be getting truck stop deviled eggs, some of them are actually pretty good, but more of them on the West Coast are good than on the East Coast. On the East Coast, they have dinky little eggs, which is shitty because it's like $6 for a 6-pack of deviled eggs. I want them to at least be regular size eggs. But Petro deviled eggs are good, and I've never seen them served in any other store. And I think we'll have, like, most of the other truck stops will have like hard-boiled eggs. I think what happens is, like, the hard-boiled eggs get a couple days old, and then they'll turn them into deviled eggs and sell them that way, which is fine. But Petros also tend to have the best squeegees to do your windows with. Like, Pilot, Flying J gets really cheap squeegees, and Loves, I don't know, theirs are always too stiff to really like get my window right. Whereas for whatever reason, Petro has better squeegees. But and the water pumps on the non-potable water pumps next to the diesel pumps tend to be operational more at Petros. which when I was OTR, I kept a little hose in one of my side compartments so I could hose off the truck for salt from snowy areas. Yeah, Love's. Well, there's only one Love's in New Jersey, but Love's is one of the most common truck stops across the country. The thing I like about Love's as opposed to other uh, trucking or truck stops is Love's gives you points for fuel and DEF, but they also give you points on your rewards card for money you spend inside. So other companies only give you points for fuel and DEF, whereas Love's, you continue to rack up more points, which is money that you can spend on free shit for money you spend inside. I don't spend a whole lot of money in truck stops. I've kept a 12-volt fridge in my OTR truck, and I went to Walmart's and did my grocery shopping so that I wasn't buying food at a truck stops. But I still pinched and got some stuff in truck stops because having the dog in the truck, I would need to get water more frequently than I'd have to go grocery shopping. So, it was a good idea. But 12-volt fridge with, and I had a dual compartment one where one side was freezer and the other side was fridge, and then having a microwave because Blackhawk gave me a truck with an APU. If you ever buy your own truck, APU is ideal. It saves a ton of fuel. Do you think it's extra points rather than giving you better page? A bit. Well, I don't work for Love, so it's extra points. And their prices are competitive with the rest of the chains. So, like, yeah, if you're going to buy work gloves, you're better off getting them at Walmart than you are getting them from a truck stop. But they do more sales in Love's than other chains do, and their prices are competitive otherwise. So, I think they're a better built company. What I don't like about Love's is your professional driver card does not work for your gas vehicle. So the idea that you're a truck driver, you must only have a diesel vehicle seems kind of stupid. So you have to have a separate rewards card for gas, which works the same way. It gives you points for stuff inside, but doesn't work on the diesel pump, which I kind of think is bullshit. But there's only one Love's in New Jersey, and it's nowhere near where I live at, so it doesn't matter. I'm not going to go to Love's randomly, and I don't keep their card on me anymore because I can only go to Pilot. This truck only has 160 gallons worth of fuel, and I go and get fuel like once a week or every other week sometimes, because I do more idling than I do driving. I only drive about 50 miles a day, but need a Class A to do this because it's in a day cab. If you were doing jockey work, apparently you don't need a Class A because like with a jockey truck, because jockey truck isn't supposed to leave the property. But if you leave the property, you still need a Class A. Well, they had me in a Volvo. The Volvo engine was actually quieter than the APU, but when they put me in an International, the International engine, the Cummins is louder than the APU. But APU, the only thing I didn't like about the APU is Thermo King is only open Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. So that meant taking time out of the time that I was making money so that I could get the APU serviced, as opposed to I got a reset every Sunday. If they were open every day of the week, like some dealers are for trucks, then I wouldn't have had to lose money to get service. And a lot of the service happened at truck stops when I was OTR, so I could get that done on my reset. But the APU, I didn't let truck stop service the APU because they fucked it up every time. And major problem with diesel mechanics is if you have a bad battery, they don't know that you have to, or maybe they do, but they're lazy. You have to disconnect the batteries to properly test them. And that is a fact. Even like my pickup truck has dual batteries. If I want to test the batteries, I got to disconnect them from each other and test them independently, because otherwise they'll normalize with the good one. But with the Volvo running 800 miles a day, I only had to get fuel every other day because I was running the APU at night. With the International running the APU, I still had to get fuel every day, but I was getting fuel at about 100 gallons, whereas the Volvo I'd do 150 gallons. But that's because the International was averaging 6 miles to the gallon. The Volvo was averaging 9, like 9.3 most of the time. But that depended on the life of the oil. I mean, truck driving is good money, but it also depends on the company you get with. Like, you have to get experience somewhere, and the companies that you can get your initial experience with, none of them pay very good. But my first year trucking, working for Werner, I brought home 37,000, which is better than money I can make locally at home. My first year trucking with Blackhawk, I brought home 80,000. My last year working with Blackhawk, I brought home 120,000. Now I'm making hopefully half that, but this company doesn't take enough tax out, so I have to pay taxes at the end of the year too. But I almost rather pay taxes when I file for taxes, because that means the government's not making money on my money more than they have to, as opposed to getting a refund. But yeah, when I was averaging 4,000 miles a week at 65 CPM, I was regularly bringing home about 2,200 a week. And every company I've worked for pays weekly, and then they gave me 33% per diem, so that meant 33% tax exempt, because all the expenses they have on the road are a part of the job. So food and any entertainment you get on the road is tax exempt. That's automatically factored in, so you don't have to report to the government a third of your paycheck, which made my net greater than my gross, because the gross is the amount that the government can see in order to be able to tax. But I did save enough money while I was OTR to be able to afford to do this now, because I invested stuff and I want to retire one day. Not now, but before my retirement age of 72. Coolest people. Well, if you were working with them, they weren't really retired, but they used to be truck drivers. And you get a certain tolerance for bullshit, having to deal with the bullshit that's on the road, because different companies are shitty. Like, I couldn't get Warner's dispatch to understand that the more miles I got, the bigger their paycheck would be, and I wanted to run. And they continually would like make me split with people that didn't know how to run hours of service. And older guys are all going to tell you that digital sucks because they want paper logs so they can lie on their paper logs. But um, it's 2025. If you think something that is now digital is going to go back to paper, you're a fucking idiot. I mean, yeah, my DVIR papers now are paper, and this truck has no ELD because it's local. Like I said, I only run 50 miles, and so long as you stay within 150 miles of your location, you don't need to be applicable to hours of service. But they also don't want me working a second job because of hours of service. So it's kind of a conundrum. I don't need to work a second job. Like I said, it's not great money, but it's not terrible either. And like, it's better money than where they hired me. Like, they renegotiated and got me a $3.50 an hour raise, which is substantial, but still not great, because it's still below jockey rate. But for the amount of work that I do, it's kind of hard for me to want to look for another job, because I don't think I'm going to be able to find another job that's going to pay me to sleep or to talk to you guys on YouTube. So, time off is another factor with different companies. Blackhawk was awesome about it. They didn't care how long I went home for. Like, took the truck home. I was usually home for 2 weeks. But if I wanted to stay home for a month, I could. I just told them when I wanted to go back on the road. They also let me set my own ETAs, so I wasn't being micromanaged in any way. That was nice because they were a smaller company. Like they only had 700 trucks, and I was their top rank. So like they treated me good until they decided my dog couldn't come anymore. Um, which I don't see how there could be enough dog hair in the truck where they didn't want him in the truck anymore. But um, Werner, however, was for every week that you're out, you earn 1 day off. So if you wanted to come home for 7 days, you had to stay out for 7 weeks. That's how I went to the Grand Canyon. That's how I went to the Redwood Forest. That's how I went to Zion. But the Grand Canyon really kicked my ass because I had to sit on my ass in the truck for 7 weeks to earn the days off to be able to go to the Grand Canyon. But I had a good time. I was glad I did that. That was one of the first things I did after I got my CDL. But every company is going to vary. Most of them are, you earn 1 day off per week that you're out. Some of them, but different companies will actually count your 34-hour reset as a day off. Blackhawk didn't count that as a day off because you couldn't always spend it at home. I did manage to spend it at home because there's a positive facility in Cinnaminson, and every once in a while I'd end up reset from there, and they'd let me go home from there. Well, yes and no. Not everybody can be a truck driver because you don't get to go home every day. I mean, this job you do, but most jobs you don't get to go home every day, and you have to be able to live in a truck. You have to deal with the fact that the only shower you're going to get is at the truck stop, and if you work for a company that's making you run into the evening, good luck finding parking at a truck stop. uh, Peter from Broadway told me Trans Am gave him 4 days max even if he stayed out for 6 months. Well, Trans Am's a shit company. They're like, they're apparently driver owned, but they don't have good equipment. They don't pay very well. Their day off policy is crap, and they hire felons. Like, if you have a shitty license or you have an otherwise shitty record, your two choices are Western Express and Trans Am. But different companies treat you different. Werner's thing was if you wanted 11 or more days off, you had to turn in your truck. But that was a way, if they put you in a truck that you didn't like, you could stay out for 11 weeks with the truck and then, have to turn it in. And then when you came back, they give you a different truck. But taking all your shit with you to go home is a pain in the ass if you're OTR and you have to have 4 seasons of clothes in the truck and you have other stuff in the truck. But they were not consistent with giving you an inverter, and they didn't get APUs for any of their trucks because they were using the auto start stop feature, which was always a pain in the ass. So, different companies are going to treat you different. Different companies get different equipment. Different companies, everybody does something differently. But these mega fleets, all of them are going to be crap in some way or another because you don't get that big by giving the driver money. And once you're so big that you have massive terminals with a bunch of people employed inside the terminals, all those people have to get paid, and your business is trucking. So every account that you have, you're taking a portion of that account to be able to pay everybody else, and company has to make a profit on top of that. They were bigger on resales of trucks than they were really worried about the driver's pay, which sucks. But they got a bunch of people with 1,000,000 miles. I don't know how anybody would put up with that company for 10 years to get 1,000,000 miles. And at the rate I was going, it would have took 25 years to get 1,000,000 miles, which ain't worth it. You remove the blanket and put it back on 50 times a night. Yeah, well, you can make the truck run by setting the trailer brake, assuming your trailer has brakes, and releasing the brakes on the truck. And most trucks will just run. Otherwise, when I had stop start in the wintertime, I would get hand warmers and tape them on the thermometer because, like, the Cascadia 1, the thermometer was on the driver window, like right underneath the convex, so you could put it on there. But then they gave me an international, and I didn't know where the thermometer was, so I couldn't do that. But because they'll constantly run below 23 degrees or below 21, something like that, or above 69 degrees. So if it was like 40 degrees, you would put the hand warmer on the thermometer and it would hold it above 69, so it would run. But the auto start feature was a pain in the ass because of bad batteries, because the truck would let the battery get down to 50% before it restarted, and you could make it run more by keeping a load on the batteries. But if you have a bad battery, 50% isn't enough, especially if that bad battery is the master of the 4-pack. Then you're not going to be able to start the truck. So it would go to restart itself, and because they wanted 50% of the battery to be able to recharge the battery, it wouldn't have enough power to start the truck, which was a problem. And you go to a truck stop and they test the battery on the outside and it says it's good because they normalize based on the better one. And well, with Werner, I had to replace batteries on a truck, and with Blackhawk, I had to replace batteries on my truck. Yeah, well, yeah, with Werner, I did a Walmart gig. I had to get a Honda Civic to give me a jump in Bayonne, New Jersey, because I wasn't waiting for roadside to get there. So I gave the dude $20. It took 45 minutes for a Honda Civic to charge up the truck enough to start it. With Blackhawk, with the APU, I knew I had bad batteries at the point where I didn't have enough power to start the APU. Um, and when I went to go check them, 3 out of 4 of them were bad, so I just replaced them all. But I replaced them all with 800 cold crank amp batteries, and the ones coming out were only 600. So the 50% of an 800 is more power. So I don't expect that truck is having that problem now, but they took it off the road with 750,000 miles because they wanted to resell it when it still had some value. Whereas Werner tried to sell them like 2 years old. They didn't care how many miles were on it. If it was on a account that was only doing 50 miles a day, they were still selling it, which, if that's how they make their money, because they were more worried about resales than they were about their drivers, which is shitty. But and then when I swapped to pods, they were a little better because that's the only dedicated flatbed account that they still have, and pods is the best OTR money because it's going to be the best miles. And like Blackhawk truck was only registered at 60,000 pounds because pods are never over that. And then Werner gave me spread axles because they were worried about resales of their trailers and cross use of their trailers. Whereas Blackhawk gave me tandems and tandem 48. Uh, Pods, you do have to do backing, whereas most flatbed, you don't have to do a whole lot of backing. But pods built their locations wherever they could. They didn't really give a shit about the truck. So there's a few locations that are back in only, a couple of them that are blindside back in only. I had to do ridiculous stuff with some locations, but it was more ridiculous with a spread axle because you can't do tight turns with a spread. But that experience is in the past, and I do miss it. I'd go back to pods if I could, but I need to be able to be home now. So I'm home, and I enjoy having weekends off because I'm off from Saturday morning until Monday night. And then if I don't sleep on Monday, I can sleep at work and make up for it. Um, it's, I mean, you don't load your own trailer. So if forklift puts the stuff on, you still have to strap your pods. But you don't have to think about weights and all that stuff. So flatbed is anything that's on the trailer gets 2 straps. If it's more than 10 feet long, it gets 3 straps. There are 3 sizes of pods. There's a 7-foot pod. They get 2 straps. They can have no more than 7,000 pounds. Each strap is good for 5,000 pounds. So you don't have to think about that. 2 straps is good enough. Then there are 12-foot pods. Those ones get 3 straps because they're over 10 feet. They can hold no more than 9,000 pounds, 15,000 pounds of strapping. Don't have to think about that. Then there are 16-foot pods. They're over 10 feet, but they're not more than 20, so they get 3 straps. And 3 straps, they can weigh no more than 10,000 pounds, but you're putting 15,000 pounds of strap on there, so you're good. 12-foot pods never leave the state that they're in, so you don't haul them very often, except when they're broken. You have to take them to the hubs where they get repaired at, which is California and New Jersey. Otherwise, that's all the thinking you have to do. And like I said, the most weight you can really be is if they'll put 6, 7 foot pods on there, which could be 42,000 pounds, but usually, like it's people's stuff. People's stuff, like they can weigh no more than 7,000 pounds, but the likelihood that somebody getting a 7 foot pod is putting 7,000 pounds in there when you're not allowed to put vehicles in there, you're not allowed to put building materials in there. The likelihood that it's 7,000 pounds is pretty slim. Like a couch takes up a lot of space, but it doesn't weigh very much. So regularly, I was only like with 16-foot pods, and that they'll put 3 of them on a 48. That like regularly, I was only at like 32,000 pounds, and that's total, and that's with the truck being close to 20,000. You have to unload yourself 10 to 16 stops a week on average. Well, like there were like when I was trying to go home, they'd give me like a couple hours, like from Jersey to New Hampshire and whatnot, and sometimes Jersey to New Hampshire to Maine, and making multiple stops to pick up pods. But most of the time, they have local and regional drivers that bring all the stuff to the hub, so it's mostly hub to hub. But it's not exclusively hub to hub because there's pod locations all over the country, and you have to go to different places. But I don't mind making 3 stops in Florida to pick up 3 different pods and taking them to Seattle and then dropping them all in one place, or even dropping them in 3 different places on the other end. Doesn't make a difference to me. And if I get my reload before then, because as soon as I know what my ETA is, I tell dispatch what the ETA is and they give me another load. So if I have a pod pickup at one of the locations that I'm dropping at the other end, then I can drop one and pick one up so long as I have space on the trailer. It is easier, and I guess I was average. Like it took a couple years before they started really giving me miles, but I was getting really good miles because I was dependable and I always beat their estimated ETAs. And working for a company let me set my own ETAs because like Werner tried to micromanage that shit, and that was frustrating because they weren't paying me money. And then I started talking to the other companies to find out how much money the other companies were paying. So I jumped to like NFI does it too. NFI owns most of the hubs, so like they're not a bad company to work for pods. I don't know how they treat their other drivers, but um, then Hogan does pods, CR England, um, Werner, uh, USA Truck, but I don't think I'd want to work for USA Truck. Um, but NFI I might go to if I ever stop being local again. But they're last I heard they're not hiring for OTR. But part of that's under the Biden economy, and under the Biden economy, everything slowed down, including people moving across the country. But pod sounds easier. A lot of stops are blindside back in, and customers are typically small places downtown. Those Ace Hardware stops in the application are our absolute favorite. Yeah, I did some Ace Hardware distribution centers, but I've seen their locations. I don't think I want to do that. That's almost as bad as Dollar General. But Dollar General makes you do 100% unloading. And all the people I saw at Werner terminals that were on light duty were because they were doing Dollar General, and like the lift gate would break and one of those rolltainers would like roll into them and like break something. I thought you liked the challenging stuff. But doing jockey work now, I blindside for fun. I don't have to blindside anywhere here, but I can. And I'm almost as good blindside as I am sight side. But with a day cab, because in a day cab you have a rear window, with a day cab it's easier. But it's really just the same turns. You just don't see what you're doing. But so long as you know what you're doing, it doesn't matter. And don't forget to get out and look. Anyway, I'm kind of getting tired, so I want to take a nap while I'm on the clock. It was really good talking to you guys. Glad I was able to entertain you for some of your downtime, Alexander. Good talking to you. Like I said, I've been doing this every night during my downtime, so I'll see all my friends in my next video.